Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Packaging Europe podcast. My name is Elisabeth Skoda. I'll be your host today. So today we're taking a deep dive into connected packaging with Güneri, Tugcu and Stefan Hilss, who both have many years of experience in the packaging industry and also especially in the connected packaging space. And a bit over a year ago, they set up the podcast Connected Consumer, Connected Packaging, with a wide range of expert guests exploring the future of consumer behavior and digital innovation. On the 1-year anniversary of their podcast, we thought we'd harness their expertise and knowledge and get their take on the state of connected packaging right now and trends and developments they anticipate and discuss some successful applications. So, yes, welcome Güneri and Stefan to the podcast today. I'm looking forward to a really interesting conversation. I thought we'd start with the basics. How would you personally define connected packaging? Let's maybe start with you, Stefan.
Thanks, Elisabeth. Glad to be on the show and go straight to the point. Yeah, what is connected packaging? I think in the end, when you try to simplify that term and explain it, it means that the packaging is more than its physics. The packaging is a bridge to call it digital twin, call it a digital parallel universe, call it something that goes beyond the thing that you hold in your hand and that brings you into a second space, in a second environment where further information, where further details, where further stories are being told, whether they are, if they are just for the one single purpose of making the product more understandable, or if they are serving a legal purpose or whatever, it doesn't matter. The idea is really to take it as an airport from where you take off into another place, which gives you more detail. I think packaging connects not only to the physical person that actually consumes the product, most likely, or buys the product, but then also connects to further detail, to a database, to information way beyond. I think that's the most simple way of how I would explain it. And the use case itself can vary a lot, but the one thing it's a starting point and it's not the end point yet. There's more to it.
Makes sense. Do you have anything to add to that, Güneri?
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you for having us. It's great to know that we can just talk and we don't have to worry about the editing. So great experience. How define connected packaging, or maybe even define connected products, as I would rather prefer. I think it's the term phygital. Really, as Stefan highlighted, it's connecting a very physical, old-fashioned analog item with the digital space for whatever purpose. I think along the conversation today, we'll dive into some of the cases and applications, but it's literally adding a new dimension, a new channel to a very physical, very old product that just enabled so much more.
And I thought it'd be interesting to hear from both of you a bit more about your respective backgrounds and what sparked your interest into connected packaging, and also just what led to the decision to set up the Connected Consumer, Connected Packaging podcast together. Obviously, that's quite a big step in many ways.
I think it was 2016. We had a small agency in my role back then at SGK as a digital innovation director who asked, there's a retailer, a very big German retailer, who's keen on knowing more about this invisible barcode. And that's how it started, actually. Dig into it and then connected back then with the team of Digimark on digital watermarking solutions. And from there, a 20-minute educational presentation turned into a full-day workshop. And I think there were close to 290 brand workshops in around roughly 2 years. And that's how my personal journey started into connected packaging, actually, in educating. And the more I dig into it, the more fascinating it was, because, that was AR and data science and everything that is tied to it. And that was even before things really got more serious with, Holy Grail and recycling projects, authentication, supply chain efficiency, and even DPP, the digital product passport these days. So it was a really early time where a lot of the brands in those workshops actually were like, yeah, this sounds nice, but do you really think this is going to happen? And QR codes on a package, it's like crazy and all that stuff. And that was just how it started. And along that journey, the one thing I realized, and this is probably the biggest reason for the Coco podcast creation, is most of the conversations among a big but very small, I mean, it looks a very big industry globally, but actually it's a certain number of really thought leaders within our industry that are always the same people at the events and same trade shows and conferences. The best conversations really happen on the sidelines. It's not necessarily what you get on stage because, companies need to watch what they say. You're not allowed to share everything, but the conversations you have afterwards, having a coffee, a beer at the after party, having a cigarette outside, or just taking a breath outside. Those are usually the ones where you really got great news and intel about what is happening where and what is working, what is not working, which is also the truth that needs to be addressed. And that was something where it took me 2 to 3 years of thinking about it and digesting about it. Wouldn't it be great to have a platform, kind of like a fireside, an intimate fireside chat where people could openly connect, share what they're doing, how they failed, how they succeeded. And from there, it was quite a journey, to work out how could it look like, feel like, find the right partner, because I didn't want it about me. I wanted to have the guest in the spotlight, but I also wanted different perspectives. So long story short, it's been quite a journey until we got to the point where we really just said, why don't we just give it a go? And it's been over a year now, very successfully. So I'm pretty proud about that decision. A lot of work, but fun.
I'll obviously also link to your podcast in the podcast description, so our listeners can go straight over there and have a listen as well. So yeah, how about you, Stefan?
Well, I mean, packaging has been with me for my entire professional career. So I think the only thing that was new in that sense is the connected part of connected packaging. And obviously, it's an extension to something that I felt very close to all my professional life, that I have been working with. So somehow the element of thinking of packaging not only as a media platform or a communication platform for immediate consumption by humans, but as a connecting point to something else isn't totally new. It isn't something that was invented only a couple of years ago. I mean, in the most brutal way, what is a consumer health care phone number on a pack? It is trying to use the platform of a pack to connect to consumers by making them phone the customer, ask questions about recipes, ask questions about whatever. We had that on pack for many, many, many years. It was just a little bit cumbersome, and it used the human interface to connect then to the brand. And it did that every single time when somebody decided to dial that 0800 number that was on there. But it was a very rather analog way to do the same. Now, connected packaging is, in that sense, an evolutionary process to say, well, you got technology in your hand and you got a scanning device in your hand. Everybody had that some 10 years ago. Smartphones started to be all over the place. And naturally, with that new device in everybody's pocket, that created a new use case, which is, when you look at it, really just an evolutionary process to take that phone number to a QR code or whatever, a technical bridge that makes it more convenient to connect and to tell more, and to also have a platform then for presenting, not just the number that you call and another person on the other side of the line, hopefully responding to your personalized question, but having all these opportunities all of a sudden available at an acceptable cost, which made it a lot more interesting to bring it into this widespread application of consumer packaging. Not luxury packaging, but really consumer packaging, everyday product, fast-moving consumer goods. So this was a promise that looked very obvious, but more like an evolutionary thing that came in through the side doors and probably still hasn't made it all the way where it should be. And yet there was maybe the one moment in time when our paths also crossed, Güneri's and mine, and that had to do with part of his story where he decided at some point then to join in his past career, Digimark, which was obviously the time when Holy Grail started to kick off, and when all of a sudden there was this massive use case, way beyond the consumer health, hotline that helps people, the consumer helpline. There was also another dimension to it, what else you could do with connected packaging or with intelligent packaging that can be machine read. not necessarily by the smartphone at home, but by other scanning devices. Of course, the ones we know already from the barcode in the supermarket checkout, but all of a sudden you had this massive recycling story on top of it. So that felt a bit like an avalanche, where all of a sudden those little micro things all put together on a big screen, you could say, there's more power in this than just making a consumer connection. And this was about the time when we touched base. We talked about this. We engaged. We became partners. We worked on it, and we were in the same work groups of Holy Grail, etc. So there was a lot of overlapping. Out of that, I think some mutual trust or some respect was created, which eventually led to a decision taken by Güneri. By all means, it is his brainchild to do this podcast. And for some stupid reason, he asked me. Don't ask me, you have to ask him. Why this guy? And I'm sure he had to answer this question occasionally. Where did you get this guy from? Why did you want to make a podcast with me? Maybe because I'm talkative. Maybe I like to ask questions as well as he does, and I won't stop asking the question until I have the answer I feel comfortable with. Maybe that's something that qualifies me, but in the end, I have to say it was a decision that really came out of the stomach. It was a decision to say, yes, why not? 1,000 reasons not to do it, but also many, many, many reasons just to do it, to try it, to experiment it and see what happens. And so a good year after this decision, here we go. We have done our monthly podcast, and we're enjoying it still. And we have more questions which have not found the right answers yet. So I guess it's going to continue until either we are satisfied or our listeners say, guys, you've done it now. We heard you. It's all said and done now. Come up with something else. But for the time being, we feel the hunger is still there. Our hunger as well as the one from our audience. So this is where we are now.
Sounds great. I could imagine there's probably still a lot to be asked and discussed. Like with Packaging Europe's podcast, I find we never really run out of things to ask and to explore. Such a vast field, so still plenty to talk about. I'm going to hit you next with quite a broad question, which could probably make up the whole podcast. But I wanted to ask you what you think are the potential benefits of connected packaging in different areas, such as sustainability, branding, or consumer engagement.
There are different use cases, and we've spent a couple of podcasts to look into the different use cases, so I don't want to elaborate on them in detail now. I think what's worth mentioning is that the same technology can fulfill many different use cases. I think this is the point in this. It's not about saying we have a solution for use case 1, we have another solution for use case 2, but the idea truly is to say this airport can handle different planes. It can handle a cargo plane, it can handle a logistics freight plane, it can handle a passenger plane, but also a very personalized little Cessna, which just lands there, takes off 10 minutes later. The idea is to have a platform through connected packaging, which enables all those different things that people think of and have been thinking of for the last 10, 20 years perhaps, but they didn't have a possibility to play it. And now you have a possibility to play it, maybe not on the physical platform called packaging, because it's just too little real estate to tell all those many stories you would like to tell. And you have the ability to tell a story in a much more personalized way, in a much more visual way, using all kinds of media. Every thinkable, possible digital innovation can be utilized. The only thing you need to connect that. You need to make sure that between those things, we don't stay in silos, and making that takeoff into that other parallel universe, as I called it earlier, an easy, convenient exercise, and not the consumer helpline where you have to dial that 0800 123 45 6 7 8 and then wait in a queue until you're there. Of course, it's all about that. Connected packaging has that power to bring additional story, more meat to the bone, to what has been limited by the sheer physics of what packaging can do, what print can do, what you can actually put in writing. That has been a limitation we kind of accepted for many, many years, and we don't have to accept that anymore. And so really the beauty, what brings that all together, those different use cases, is that technology is an enabler. It is not the product itself. Connected packaging is not a product. The idea is to have a medium to bring you to whatever then is the extension of a product or an extension of an information piece, etc. So this to me is really what makes it different and what makes it so powerful, because that's not a small little add-on. It's something that has a broader, wider, possible application that you can even imagine right now. I don't think that we are at the end of the imagination. We just, if this becomes commonplace, if this is all over the industry, you will see a lot more use cases being invented and built on top of that departure gate. And you will see things that we don't even think about yet, which is, again, the reason why we probably continue with our podcast, because I think there will be more to come.
Long story short is it enabled a lot of things, almost everything at the same time. You don't need to look for a solution for sustainability or scan faster, cash out and everything. If you do it right, it solves big problems, which helps you to get the budget that you need, the funding. And then you solve a lot of things at the same time. And I think that's something that people need to realize. It's a very powerful asset, but very untapped today, because the tendency throughout a lot of the industry members, whether it's brands, retailers, or those solution providers, is on specific use cases, rather than enabling a whole new experience throughout different channels through that one unique channel, which is called packaging.
Brings me to my next question, which kind of leads on from this. I'd imagine there's some common misconceptions about connected packaging, or people misunderstanding what it can and can't do. Are there any of these you would like to talk about or clear up?
I think that the challenge that you hear a lot is, well, do we need this? How much does this cost and everything? But again, it enables you multiple solutions, services at the same time. So let's just take Holy Grail. I'm sure all of your listeners are aware of what's going on. Tim is doing a tremendous work on this one, supporting the whole initiative and everything. But what if the safe packaging that is disruptively improving recycling, mechanical sortation, can be scanned at retail scanners at the same time from consumers? Now suddenly it's not only about recycling. Now it's about consumer engagement. It's about retail efficiency, in-store management. What about a QR code that is helping consumers to get further information about halal, kosher, vegetarian, vegan, all the things that Stefan highlighted? There's just not enough retail packaging estate where you can add those certificates, the messages, all the great things the brands do. What about authentication, right? What about ensuring that something you have brought, whether it's apparel or special nutrition, dietary products, or even spirits, liquor, is genuine, is authentic. So again, I think that the biggest misconception and the biggest challenge that I still see, also going back to recent surveys from Appetite Creative and other ones, confirming the lack of education and knowledge throughout the brand side, retailers and brand side, and I think this is faulty, and it goes on the solution provider industry, because all of us are not doing a good enough job, apparently, because the numbers of brands, 40, 50, 60%, that still don't know where to go, how to start, what to do, remains at the same level. So the consultative side, the education seems to be the biggest problem to solve those misconceptions.
The term, exactly as I said earlier, is not a product. Some people say, what is connected packaging? Is something I have to put on top? No, it's not that. It's a means to an end. It's something that you do to achieve something else. And it's just really a meta level expression to say something that is sometimes hard to put it in simple terms, because it's so vastly different what is the initial objective. So I believe that in the end, most people will have, potentially misconception because they really haven't thought about themselves what they want to achieve. And so then you think that the term clarifies it for you. It won't. You need to know what you want to get done, and you need to have your internal discussion with your own team. What is priority, and what are maybe 2 or 3 cases altogether we want to achieve? And bringing that all together may mean that economics will work. I mean, Güneri mentioned that earlier. Sometimes it wasn't, there's the real estate. That's one limiting factor. There is a physical limitation. but there's also commercials. It is not possible to have 3, 4, 5 different objectives all added on top of the cost of packaging, and you have different codes and you have different technologies trying to connect you to those other use cases. That's simply not feasible from an economic point of view. So people will have to look at a common lingua franca, a kind of a way to say, through here I can achieve more than one. And therefore, this always brings you back to your own organization, typically, to find out what is it that I prioritize, what is it what I also want to achieve as a side effect. There might be a pioneer case and there might be followers, but you need to have a clear vision about what to achieve. Connected packaging per se does not deliver on anything. It's about bringing you to an added value page, not to your web page or whatever people may have thought of would be sufficient. So we've done conversations like that in the past, where still we have plenty of cases where people put QR codes on, and the best they can come up with is the landing page of their product as a great offer to the consumers, which is absolutely not mission accomplished. Technology is there, but not using it. So what? So I think this is the misconception that some people may still have on it.
My next question, obviously you've been doing this, your podcast for a year, and I'm sure you've come across many interesting conversation partners and learned about interesting developments. Do you have any sort of key learnings or any personal highlights or surprises from that year of doing the podcast?
Indeed, a lot of learnings, to be honest. First of all, it's so much more work than people expect. Just editing it and having the right sound quality and everything, it's tremendous. But going back to I think the real question is, one of the decisions I thought a lot about was I wanted to go for at least 60 minutes. That's usually the average time you need for a flight within Germany. I see a lot of podcasts doing great work, but they're like 20, 30 minutes something. I think one of the learnings we have, that's not enough to educate people. Like our promise is not exactly a masterclass, but one session should be enabling you to really understand something and know where to go, how to start, and all that stuff. So I think the 60 minutes plus minus was the right decision. That's a learning. Another learning is how quick things and how dynamic things change. Like we're pretty much booked for almost a year in regards of speakers and guests. But we see how often we change because something pops up because it becomes relevant at that time, and you don't want to record a session for a topic that is being requested now in 6 months. There's just no value. So we see a lot of jiggling, which is sometimes hard because our promise is avoid salespeople as guests because we don't want anyone selling it. We want people to share their passion, the vision, and the mission. So getting, and I'm sure again this pain, getting thought leaders, C-level members, having them available for 60 to 70, 80 minutes with, setup, post conversation, all that stuff. It's quite challenging. So shifting schedules, finding new hosts, changing topics, creating a script to have a framework. That's challenging by times. But what we see is the more we dig into it, the more requests we get. Like the upcoming episode we're planning to do is one of the most requested because so many people lack understanding of that topic. I think we're on the right track, but it remains a very dynamic market and industry, which is great because again, we want to serve people information, news, and even some sort of an entertainment. Like we're not per se here to entertain you, but we want to make it fun, right? I mean, it's 60 minutes of your life of a packed day usually for most of our listeners. So it should be worth it. Should be fun, should be entertaining, but also educational. So that balance and staying up to date was one of the earliest learnings we've had.
Yeah, if I may add to that, I mean, one of the things from my perspective, and again, I said that earlier, it was and is Güneri who has the lead on it. So I'm chipping in more sometimes as a generalist. So we had to balance our roles. If you have two guys as a host, you have to also give people confidence that they don't feel like two people are asking the same question. So what is this? Are they interrogating me? Is this like, are they grilling me? Does it take two against one? So you have to bring it from different angles. And of course, I'm trying as much as I can to look at it more from a generalist angle, being sort of like representative of my CEO role, or being a general manager who has a lot of topics on his table, not only connected packaging, not only technology, but a lot of the whole other stuff around it, people, HR, whatever, how people, play their daily life in many other contexts. And I think it was important for us to have that clear understanding of our role inside the podcast, and to also manage a bit our, who takes care of what, and who is more focused on, making a deep dive on technology versus a more broader questionnaire. And also, like Güneri said, keeping it entertaining and, keeping some fun in this whole thing. It's our time as well. I mean, it's lifetime, not only of our listeners, but our time as well. And we also have 1,000 reasons to not do this and take care of our stack of emails and whatever else. So I think this was important to keep that level high, to not lose on that, and to not lose the fun part in it, and make it just a kind of a processing machine of information. No, that's not the format of a podcast. It still has to do with a little bit of, going off and a little bit beyond maybe the obvious question. And it's important that we keep this. That was a learning, that this doesn't just happen by itself. You have to actually make sure you stay on that track.
That mirrors quite a lot of our experiences here at the Packaging Europe podcast as well. But it's a fun and interesting medium. So I wanted to also kind of harness your expertise and knowledge a little bit, and ask you what you think is, or who is driving innovation right now in the connected packaging space. Is it more brands or startups, or packaging suppliers, or somebody else who I haven't listed here? And I was also wondering if you could give us any examples of solutions recently that have really impressed you in the field.
It's a good question, really. If you ask me a simple answer, who is in the driver's seat? Because in the end, I don't see that either one of those players you mentioned, whether it's the big brands or whether it is the packaging suppliers, has that driver's seat role. It's nobody alone. It is about getting the dots connected between the technology that is being provided, certainly mostly by startups and by companies that try to leverage technology and make a business case out of it. I see brands understanding the added value, but struggle to formulate exactly what they want. So it does take intensive conversation for them to understand what is available, what is technology providing. But the use case, again, I come to this point, technology is just the element that then enables the use case. And without a clear understanding of the use case, your technology could be just the totally wrong answer, and that doesn't deliver. And that creates frustration. And if you then go to the packaging suppliers, which are the ones who potentially add that feature mechanically, either by print or by any other application onto the pack, they also will not say there is this one solution that solves all your issues, that one single tech which they have invested into, and say this will be the perfect answer to all your needs. This is what makes it more challenging than just a rollout of a feature. It's because it overlaps the different interest groups, and it requires that in-depth conversation to understand what are you trying to achieve, what is your budget, what is your target audience, what are your technology limits, etc. And then find who can bridge that technology limit in the best possible way. So I don't know if I could really say that any of them is in the driver's seat. Obviously, technology innovators are the ones who try to push into the space because they have the tool. Are they in the driver's seat? Are they really controlling this at the moment? I have my doubts, but this would be an answer I'd hope to get a bit more detail from Güneri, who is more in that space today, every day, basically battling in that field every day.
It's a good question, and to be honest, I don't see much innovation right now. I think to give you an example, as you asked for, Steve Ruddle from Kellogg's Pringles, they're doing a hell of a job with the accessibility codes from Navilens, Zapper with their AQRs. And I think that's also a good example. It's very innovative, but it also shows that making a step back or even two away from all these fancy one-off marketing campaigns and AR experiences to something that is really helpful, that is changing the lives of many. In this case, the visually impaired people. I think that's a great innovation. I think this is disrupting, and this shows the power of this channel, of this solution, this platform on enabling new services and experiences. What I don't see really much is really true innovations. I think this is a big challenge for packaging in general, whether it starts up and all things. Even though we live in a very precious and blessed times, we have Project Sunrise coming up, where GS1 is pushing heavily towards the change from GTINs and barcodes, EN codes to the QR code, not only for retail scanning but also for consumers and all that stuff. At the same time, we have something incredibly disruptive like the DPP, the Digital Product Passport, starting with fashion and apparel in general. But what I don't see is innovation on it, to be honest. You see so many startups that offer the same. What you see is what you get platforms where you basically drag and drop something to create a platform. But what about great creative content to serve the compliance part? What about added values? I mean, I could name you 20 startups or companies that serve you as a DPP agency, and they all do the same. The one has a blue button, the other one has a red button, but that's about it in regards of disruptive innovation. So I think we can be more innovative. We can be more bold and disruptive. I don't see much of that, but I see brands like the ones mentioned and others trying to change a little on that. And to give it credit, it's not really easy to change packaging because we're a consuming society. It's all about capitalism, even with high inflation and tariffs. So products need to be produced as efficient and cheap as possible, and then looking in change of materials and all that stuff just has a tremendous impact to it. So you need to give the brands also credit. Packaging is a very complex topic where small changes can have huge impacts, whether it's commercial or technical.
Yeah, I would just add the stakes are high, like you said, in packaging. There's a lot of stakeholders invested into packaging. And therefore, like Güneri said, just pretending that this is just a little A4 sheet where you change a bit of information, that's not it. There's a lot of people having something to say in it. And I think the true innovation comes in applying it into something that makes sense, something that really adds value. That's the innovation part. Like the example Güneri just stated, this was about taking technology that's been around already, that's been available, that's been invented. And it's about applying it into something that creates a higher value. So it's more about overlapping those different things. You have technology, you have a choice of different connected packaging technologies, so to say. You have different consumer needs, you have different compliance needs, you have different brand owners with different storytelling needs. And all that together, you have to overlap to find a perfect match or the best possible match in all those objectives. And that's where the innovation sits, to find that perfect combination, rather than saying for every single case, somebody has to sit down and innovate something. Innovation is about finding the perfect use case, not so much inventing another technology to serve a new use case. So I think it's more about that. And that's the challenging part, because you can't point into one direction, say this guy's got to run the show, and then you're done.
Maybe that's a useful call to action to our listeners, or a useful reminder to really think about what they're doing and what they want to achieve. I also wanted to ask you about, obviously there's been in recent years a rise of omni-channel strategies, and I was wondering, how has this influenced connected packaging applications across physical and digital touchpoints? I'd imagine there'd be quite a lot of use cases there.
I would say it's one of the absolute driving forces. There's no question about the fact that there is no possibility to be in the consumer goods space and stay in your analog only communication platform of the physical pack. If you want to sell it in different channels, you're going to have to be ready not only for the digital space of sales, but also any other digital communication platform. And that's not going to go away. That's going to be strong. Everybody knows that. That's not a choice. That's a reality. And of course, that is, in my view, one of the biggest enabler that people cannot run away from. You can ask yourself, do I really have to create a parallel universe of my physical pack to tell something, something about its origins? It's something you may choose to do or not choose to do for as long as you're not regulated to do so. But if you have consumers of the next generation insisting on saying, your story, I will never read physically on your pack, but your story is either relevant to me because I get a digital information piece, or you have other platforms that crawl your information to provide a kind of tailored, curated selection list of things that you may buy or not buy because of your values, because of your priorities, because of your allergens or whatever. All that will depend on digital content being made available. And if you don't have that availability, your product simply won't be listed, or it will be graded down. And so it's economics that force people into this, because in the end, it's the consumer that decides. And if you're not consumer ready, your product can be as good as you can be. The consumer will make its decision. So absolutely, Omniverse and the presence of digital interfaces in the front of us consumers forces a change away from that physical on-shelf world into a parallel universe, minimum one parallel universe, probably even more in the future.
It's very simple. If you look, not only what COVID caused, and during my time when I was working at Amazon, is e-commerce is here to stay, right? So in the past, you would create shiny new displays and packages to stand out on a shelf, to compete with other products look alike, and especially when you look at a Walmart in the US and you have like 400 different cereal brands, it makes sense. But people now order stuff home, right? Not only on Amazon, but delivery services. So now you're losing the point of sale. That POS doesn't have any relevance for your audience anymore, of today, of tomorrow, and certainly not in the next years. So packaging will become even more important. And now the question is, well, you don't know now where consumers are buying which products and all that stuff, because retail won't be able to share any of that data because nobody goes in there. Now you need to connect with them on the couch, right? Give them a reason to tap, to scan, to connect with your product, to share behaviors. And wouldn't it be great if you scan a bottle of wine sitting at the river or at the beach, and it looks at your geolocation, fully GDPR compliant, and says, well, it's sunny, and gives you a playlist on Spotify or Apple Music, giving you the right songs for that wine to enjoy the sunny day. That's all very feasible, and that's very easy to do today. And yet still too many brands don't see that marketing channel opportunity.
I was also interested in how brands might balance the demand for these more immersive digital experiences with concerns around data privacy and consumer trust. And basically maybe some consumers don't want to be too connected to their packaging, so to speak.
And it makes sense, right? I mean, we're from Germany, which is probably one of regions or countries in Europe in regards of consumer behavior and data sharing and trust. But maybe to say first thing first, we are all not legal experts, but our expertise and experience shows we have something very powerful, and for a reason, called GDPR, right, which protect the consumers and from collecting data and all that stuff, which is fine. Because the first level of engagement you have is knowing which phone is scanning where, what time, which language preference. That's already a lot to serve customer needs and engage with them, give them a good reason. Now, again, to something that Stefan highlighted at the beginning, if you don't do a proper call to action in consumer education for people to actually tap, scan, whatever, that's not going to happen. But if they do, give them a good reason to sign up for customer loyalty, coupons, gamification, a playlist, stuff that makes sense. The work that you do on saving the world and all that stuff. So maybe as a quick example here, Patagonia, when they got rid of 6 hang tags, so moving from 7 hang tags to 1 on apparel and switching to a serialized QR code, I think Dominic Gerard on our podcast said is somewhere around 77 tons of paper reduction annually and 353 days of resource savings. That's a lot. That's crazy. Communicate this to consumers, right? And if you give them a good reason to connect with you to the branding, they will be openly sharing. And then you suddenly connect the anonymous, fully GDPR compliant data with personalized data. And now for the very first time, brands don't need to go to Meta and Apple and all these and Google and buy expensive third-party data, and you only get like a fraction. No, now you're managing your own channel directly with the consumer, and we're talking about first-hand data that you own, and make it worth for the consumers to opt in, and then that what we see is consumers don't worry too much if there's a good reason, a good purpose, a good education behind it. But if you're trying to mislead them, it's going to backfire really bad.
I would add to that in the end, connected packaging isn't anything different to any other option that we have today to choose or not to choose to release our details. Every loyalty system, every loyalty card that there is does the same thing. And people make choices, either subconscious or conscious. I can't help people I can educate them. Of course, everybody has to take their own decision, but it's not a risk that in that sense is new. What connected packaging would be doing is equally the same as if you would be giving any kind of personalized information to any website that you decide you want to have a download, everything you want to achieve by getting a free 20% voucher here and there. That's the trade-off. And I think that trade-off is, at least to the majority of people, well understood, that this is what you give in return for something that you get. Every trade has that principle. So there still is an element of saying, no, it's up to you. You don't have to necessarily, but it is a choice you make. And if you do that choice, then, well, it's nothing new. It's nothing different to what you have been doing maybe 10 minutes ago when you were signing up for a loyalty scheme.
Related to that, I also wanted to ask you, is connected packaging always a good idea, or is there sometimes a danger of sort of overcomplicating things, or maybe where you might think it's not actually even necessary?
Again, I think it comes back to what we said very early today is you don't need to see it as a product. So you can't over-engineer it. You can under-engineer it by just putting a QR code somewhere, maybe even on the back of pack, where people usually don't scan less than on front of pack for marketing and visual reasons. But I think it's just, again, if I buy a box of cereals or a pair of shoes, and all you do is direct me to the desktop website of that pair of shoes or cereals, there's just no value in it. So again, make it worth. Give people a good reason to get additional information, entertainment, education, and all that stuff. And then you can't do anything wrong with it. You might not get the amount of data and engagement. That's true. But again, people look at Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, and all these brands, but they've been doing this for years, maybe decades. And the number of projects that failed are tremendous. It takes time to take that learning, because this is a new channel, a new media channel that you need to take the learnings and then improve step by step with achievable goals. So I don't think you can over-engineer it, but you can certainly under-engineer it.
Yeah, over-promise and under-deliver probably would sum it more up, that you really raise an expectation which you then don't fulfill. So you can call this over-engineering, but I think truly it is under-delivering.
So I wanted to wrap up our conversation by looking ahead a bit to the future, and I was wondering if either you had any thoughts about whether there's like one big development that you will think will redefine the smart packaging landscape, and also what kind of applications might fade away, or you might even think that there isn't just the one big thing.
I think the Project Sunrise, the switch from barcodes, GTINs to 2D codes, that's going to be a significant change. That's going to disrupt a lot, because now we're not talking about adding something. You will have to have a QR code, and why wouldn't you use it as a channel for consumer engagement, loyalty, couponing, and all that stuff? GS1 is doing a tremendous work on this to educate the brands and retailers. A lot of retailers actually already committed to it. I think from a CPG, from a consumables FMCG perspective, Project Sunrise is going to be very disruptive in a positive way, just like the digital product passport for many other industries, especially for my current side of the business in apparel, fashion. Now you need to certainly have a QR code or an NFC tag on a product, on every single product that is serialized, where consumers can get additional information, sign up, customer loyalty, and all that stuff. So I think those are two very impactful and great opportunities for the industry because we've always been preaching about the benefits. Now it's, well, you will have to do it. Why wouldn't you use it in a full way and get the most out of it? My heart also says Holy Grail should be something to still look for, even though it got a lot quiet. But the results in regards of improvement in recycling was tremendous and game changing. I still see a lot of challenges for that. Again, there's reasons why it got so quiet and all that stuff, but that's something, in the corner of an eye, I would still have an eye on because it's just recycling is a big problem. So I think technology is serving us some great solutions, but certainly Project Sunrise and the digital product passport will probably be the massive game changers that help us to have different conversations than in the past.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, there is, of course, regulation, which will, by the nature of it, the sheer nature of the fact that it will be imposed and not be a choice anymore, that will be a driver as well. And that may then eliminate some island solutions because it's going to be commoditized. Like the Güneri said, there is Project Sunrise on the one hand side, there is legal aspects on the other side, and that will make it a commodity. And so in the end, then it's really just making more out of the commoditized solution and adding value to that wherever there is a value to it, but it's not going to fundamentally change the game, just making it more normal. I think this is what to expect in the not too distant future. And that's why we believe this is not a topic for a niche, but it is actually a topic for the broad application of everybody. So it has to come out from the nerdy space into the big screen cinema. And because not of us, because we think our story is so great, but because all the stuff that's happening around us is not allowing us anymore to keep this in a R&D department somewhere. It's topic number 17. One time a year we look into it. That's gonna work.
That makes a lot of sense. And great note to end this podcast. It'll be interesting to watch this space, see what happens in the next few months and years. It's obviously a very interesting and dynamic field. Like I said, I'll link to your podcast as well, so our listeners can take their own deep dive right away and see what's out there in connected packaging. So that just leaves me to say thank you very much, Güneri and Stefan, for being on the podcast today.
Always a pleasure. Have a great week.
Have a great week, everybody out there. Thank you, Elisabeth.
Indeed.
And of course, to the listeners.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.